Sheryl Swoopes, one of the biggest haters of Caitlin Clark right now in the WNBA. And it's honestly gotten to the point where I don't even think she believes the stuff she's saying. There's a recent clip from her podcast, going viral right now, that is honestly sponsored by the WNBA. So they do push her podcast out there. And it's with Sheryl Swoopes, and she basically mentioned the Indiana Fever, about how great they're doing this season, and basically about how they turned it around after the Olympic break, talking about the Indiana Fever. And the names that she mentioned on the team, she was talking about Lexi Hull and how she's been watching her and how phenomenal she's been doing. And Lexi Hull honestly has been doing great since her last performance, hitting 6 out of 7 threes in a game against the Seattle Storm, which is honestly amazing. She talked about Lexi Hull and how great she's doing. Then she also talked about how Leah Boston and Mitchell took another step to another level this season. And yeah, they have been picking it up as well. But talking about the Indiana Fever, that's the only 3 players that she talked about. She didn't mention Caitlin Clark at all, not once. Talking about the Indiana Fever, not once. She didn't mention the reason why they're playing so much better, their team leader, the person that's leading their team in all categories, which is Caitlin Clark. She didn't mention Caitlin Clark not once in her most recent podcast, and she was talking about the Indiana Fever. So it's honestly just ridiculous, and it's honestly gotten to the point where Sheryl Swoopes, it looks like she's just doing this for clicks and views, because her podcast has been getting a lot of more views. But it's gotten to the point where, like, let's be honest, I don't think she believes the stuff that she says. I don't know, I guess she has an agenda so Angel Reese can win Rookie of the Year. Like, after she was done talking about the Indiana Fever, she was just talking about Angel Reese and how she just had another double performance and stuff. And she didn't talk about Caitlin Clark not once. So it's clear as day that Sheryl Swoopes just hating on Caitlin Clark even more by not even mentioning her when mentioning the Indiana Fever and talking about how they turned around their season so far. It's honestly just ridiculous at this point, man. It's really ridiculous. They've won the past 2 games against the Phoenix Mercury and the Seattle Storm, and not once is Caitlin Clark getting mentioned at all about how she broke the assist record, how she played these last 2 games, getting her other teammates involved, and how much better that she's making her other teammates around her. Nothing mentioned about Caitlin Clark at all. As I said, we can't be surprised because it's coming from Sheryl Swoopes, someone who's like a generational hater, you know, of Caitlin Clark. Honestly, there's probably an agenda or something, man. I don't know, man. I don't know how you could hate on someone this much. Like, Caitlin Clark has brought more eyes to the league. She's the reason why more people are actually watching the WNBA. More people actually care about watching the game and watching Caitlin Clark succeed. So I guess when you're succeeding at something and breaking a lot of barriers, there's going to be some people who don't like it, you know? Some people who won't like you at all. And I guess Sheryl Swoopes was one of them, one of the players, that former WNBA legend. You guys don't understand, Sheryl Swoopes is a legend. She won multiple championships, and the fact that she's doing this to Caitlin Clark is honestly, honestly disgusting, man. But this is just how it is sometimes with the media and stuff, trying to get the clicks and views, and not even mentioning Caitlin Clark when bringing up the Indiana Fever is honestly embarrassing in my opinion, because she is the leader of the team. Caitlin Clark's the only reason why the Indiana Fever have been playing so much better. Like last season, the Indiana Fever without Caitlin Clark ended their record with 13 wins and 27 losses. This season, with Caitlin Clark, with 12 games remaining in the season, the Indiana Fever already have 13 wins and 15 losses. They're already tied how many wins they had last season, and there's 12 games remaining this season. That's how big Caitlin Clark makes a difference for the Indiana Fever in this team. Last season, they had 13 wins and 27 losses. This season, they're already at 13 wins and 15 losses, and they have the chance to make the playoffs for the first time in over 6 years. That's because of Caitlin Clark and how great she is, and how she's changing the WNBA and the league. And a lot of people aren't ready for that. So I'm happy for Caitlin Clark and what she's doing. And we just have to show our appreciation to someone who's changing the league as we speak. And that's honestly Caitlin Clark. There's going to be haters like Sheryl Swoopes who just honestly don't like Caitlin Clark for some reason. when it's honestly ridiculous. And honestly, if we're gonna be honest, this podcast is sponsored by the WNBA. So, like, if you guys watch WNBA games, I always promote this podcast with Sheryl Swoopes. So, the podcast is getting out there. We all know about the podcast. So, it's just unfortunate that she's not talking about Caitlin Clark. But, you know, at least Caitlin Clark was gonna win Rookie of the Year, and she's gonna lead the Indiana Fever to a playoffs position this season because of Caitlin Clark. And let's honestly see what other people have to say about this as well in the comments. You forget, Sheryl Swoopes is a generational level hater. I know people on Twitter tend to use hyperbole, but the hate in the woman's heart is real. WNBA is good for the brand. The face of the league gets ignored by WNBA podcast because one of the hosts hate her for absolutely no reason, just wondering. Yeah, but basically, I mean, you guys get the point that a lot of people don't like what Sheryl Swoopes is saying, and you know, mentioning the Indiana Fever without Caitlin Clark. Come on, that's embarrassing. You know what you're doing at this point. You know what you're doing by not mentioning Caitlin Clark when you mention the Indiana Fever and how great they've been playing. But what do you guys think about Sheryl Swoopes not mentioning Caitlin Clark at all, talking about how great the Indiana Fever have been playing, and not mentioning Caitlin Clark at all? What do you guys think about Sheryl Swoopes' hate towards Caitlin Clark?